foundation for my entire future is about to be poured here in Chapter 9. Welcome back. While I was still buzzing from not getting thrown out of the colonel's office, now was the time to get my final folder together and prepared to meet the board. Brandon, my good buddy, was also going through this process at the same time. So we were doing all the research that we could find to try to figure out what would appease these gods that would decide our fate. Desperate for insider information, I would even ask people at the gym that I saw wearing flight suits if they knew anything about the board, if they happened to be on the board or knew people on the board and what the board was looking for, but could not get any additional information. By this time, I had been working with my new recruiter for a few weeks, and I needed one more letter of recommendation. While I had exhausted all my local sources, I had one idea that just might be my ace in the hole. You remember the Defender Challenge competition that I competed in Guam, where I didn't make the team? Well, a couple of years later, I tried again and I did make the worldwide team. So we went to San Antonio, Texas to compete in the worldwide competition. And then on the way back to Hawaii, when our airplane parked at the gate and the seatbelt sign went off, everybody stood up and I saw 2 rows in front of me was a familiar looking distinguished gentleman that just happened to be General Peterson. He was the general that encouraged me to take flight lessons. Now I had to take advantage of this opportunity that where we were just stuck, nobody was going anywhere, so I just started talking to him and I could tell that he had remembered me. And I told him about the progress that I had made, and I was very pleased to hear him offer those words that you always want to hear from somebody in that position. He said, "Well, if there's anything I can help you with, let me know." And I said, "Okay." I stored that away. So here it was a couple of years later after that experience on the airplane, and I just got the idea to send him an email. The only problem was he wasn't in Hawaii anymore. He had moved on to the Pentagon, and so I didn't know his contact information. So I just took a shot in the dark with what I knew the standard military email format to be, using the name and duty location, and I sent him an email that morning. Then I paced around the house the rest of that morning, questioning my decision to just send an email to a general officer at the Pentagon. But by now I had experience going around military protocol. So to my surprise, he responded back that afternoon. My own mom doesn't even respond to emails that fast. And now my file was complete, and it was off to the board in the hands of these mysterious colonels who would pick the winners and the losers. A few weeks had gone by, and I was on my way back to the bus yard for the afternoon pickup. And my cell phone rang. I could barely hear it over the rattling motor mounts in my car. And it was my court-appointed recruiter. He called to let me know that I was not selected. But the good news was that my package would automatically carry over to the next board that was going to meet in 6 weeks. I was prepared for the bad news, but I wished that I hadn't been. Because if I had actually expected to get selected, then that would have meant that I had moved on from that kid that didn't get picked in sports, or when I played baseball, they put me in right field because that's where nobody hits the ball. So I wish that I had been more disappointed than I was. But at the same time, it was fair. I'd always believed in justice, and justice said that the kid that used his backpack as a desk pillow in high school didn't deserve to get that slot. The other kids, the ones that actually tried hard and made good choices, they deserved it more than I did. And now it appears that my baby daughter, my family, is going to pay the price for my mistakes. I had a friend at church named Jim who happened to work on Randolph Air Force Base. And of all places, the recruiting headquarters. He was a sharp and friendly man who was very aware of my family's circumstances. So he offered to help by asking me about my personal statement. The personal statement was just that. It's a form that they gave you to fill out, explaining why you wanted to join the military and why you wanted to do the job that you selected. And he told me that was a very important part of the selection process. He took a look at mine and suggested that I take out a lot of the personal sentiments, surprisingly. They wanted to hear more things like that you're committed, that you have a devotion to duty, a lot of these just buzzword type terms that don't really paint a picture of a human. So I did that. I modified it, changed it around. I touted my leadership abilities, told them the things that they wanted to hear, and then I waited for another 6 weeks, knowing that this was my absolute last chance. I was a zombie behind the big steering wheel driving that bus. I just put the earplugs in, glanced up from time to time to make sure no kids were throwing each other out the windows, and I just made my runs and did my stops. Family life offered a brief distraction from time to time, but our new baby was so ornery. She cried a lot. She was a very difficult child. But her crying did make it easier for me to leave in the evenings to go to night school with all the other second chance students. And I tried to be positive for Tina, who was still folding laundry and changing diapers with a smile. I wanted her to believe that our standard of living was going to change soon, because I was starting to worry that she wouldn't be with me much longer if it didn't. So several more weeks went by, and Tina came to pick me up from the bus yard after work. She got out of the car to meet me, and there was a lot of emotion in her eyes. She told me she had good news and she had bad news, and I knew what she was going to tell me. She told me that Jim, our friend, had gotten the word that I was selected to be a navigator, not a pilot. So the good news being that we were getting lifted out of poverty, that this wasn't going to be our station in life forever. But the bad news, obviously, that I missed out on my main goal. Tina just simply said that she was sorry. She knew that even though I felt relief, that there was no consolation that could make up for the feeling of loss that I was experiencing. So she didn't tell me to look on the bright side. She just let me process it. And of course, I processed it as a failure. As I got into the car, I could smell Papa John's pizza in the back seat. Papa John's was only for special occasions. And this was a special occasion for Tina. She got what she deserved, but she was still conflicted between those feelings of relief for her and our family and feeling sympathy for me. Now, don't get me wrong about navigators. They were still important to the mission. They still had important responsibilities. But most people don't shoot for that unless they have bad eyesight or some other kind of medical condition that won't allow them to be a pilot. It's never really anybody's first choice. And while I would still get to be a part of a team effort, nobody really knows the name of the guy in NASCAR who changes the left rear tire. So with our baby and a hot pizza in the back seat, we stopped at the park on the way home. We sat at the concrete picnic table and ate our pizza, and it was mostly quiet, except for the sounds of baby Holly squealing at the squirrels and smearing pizza all over her face. I tried to be grateful, but there was such a deep sense of loss. I just didn't know how to process chasing a goal for so long and then missing it. While I waited for a class date to start officer training school, it was back to driving the bus. By now, we were nearing the end of the school year, and I had gotten pretty proficient at driving this big yellow beast. The air brakes were very grabby, but I was well practiced at stopping as smoothly as possible, putting the door right in front of the waiting student. And that just gave me something to do to make it more interesting. Well, one morning, I put the door right in front of these two waiting sisters, a real nice smooth stop. And as they stepped onto the bus, their mom came running out of the house down the beautiful concrete pea gravel driveway, waving something in her hand. She stepped up to the door of the bus and handed it to her daughter, who handed it to me. And the mom said, "I just wanted to say thank you for being their bus driver." So I smiled and I looked at the pen, and I kind of startled when I read the words on it. United States Air Force Academy. Wow, I thought, here's another opportunity for me to tell somebody that I'm not really a bus driver, that I was just pretending to be one. And so I got to tell her that I had been in the Air Force. And then I told her that I'm getting ready to go to officer training school in a few months. And she said, "Oh, really? That's great news. We're an Air Force family." She said, "We got those pens when my husband was teaching at the Air Force Academy. And now he's at Randolph as an instructor pilot." I paused and thought to myself, of course he is. A lovely wife, big beautiful house, a BMW in the driveway. Of course he is. And that's chapter 9. You've been with me so far through the rough times of my life, so I hope you'll come with me to see things start to improve for my family before reaching the apex and starting back down. Thanks for watching.